Welcome into this edition of Bengals Breakdown. Once again, I am your host, Stone Shields. Thank you so much for joining us. Some significant news out of Cincinnati yesterday as Tee Higgins reportedly signed his franchise tag for 2024 worth $21.8 million. And we'll dive into all that in a second. But first of all, it's Father's Day. So how about everybody get down there in the comments and wish their dad a happy Father's Day. Give him a shout out. There's no limit to how many times you can comment on this video. You want to give your dad one shout out, great. You can do it 100 times if you want as well. So get down there, show your love for your dad and all the fathers out there in Who Dey Nation. Shout them out in the comment section. So the Bengals social media team posted this on Twitter yesterday. As you can see here, it says jellyfishing, and it was accompanied by a picture of SpongeBob catching a jellyfish as well. And this is kind of a callback on something Tee Higgins tweeted about March of last year, sort of went viral. He was talking about how he got a jellyfish tank for his house, and he was asking for questions in terms of how to set it up. So Bengals not necessarily going out there and saying that he signed his franchise tag yesterday, but certainly implying it here with this post. And all the major media guys, also Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, reported that Tee Higgins signed this yesterday and should be official here tomorrow, I believe. But now we can really start to get excited about Tee Higgins coming back and playing for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2024. He's obviously been an incredible weapon for Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor and the whole Bengals offense. Obviously had some injury issues last year, missed some games. But before that, in 21 and 22, you can see 2 1,000-yard seasons. He's really been a big-time, big-game player for the Bengals, right? Had a 100-yard game in the AFC Championship that the Bengals won in Kansas City, followed that up by another 100-yard game in the Super Bowl. And, a lot more December magic last year for Tee Higgins, despite missing 5 games. People remember those 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns he had against Minnesota, one of which being just the incredible one-armed lunge towards the pylon with under a minute left that ultimately won the game for Cincinnati. And then he also had a really nice game in Kansas City as well with 140 yards. Really helped keep the Bengals in that game when they really had no business being in it. And obviously Kansas City went on to win the Super Bowl last year. But taking a look here at this Bengals depth chart, Tee Higgins coming back is certainly going to take a lot of pressure off a lot of these guys, right? Guys like Jermaine Burton and Andrei Iosivas, there were questions about whether or not they would have to step up into a wide receiver 2 role this year. And with Tee Higgins coming back, obviously they don't need to do that. They can kind of sit back, compete for that wide receiver 3 position, and kind of go from there. And, with Tee coming back, I do believe the Bengals have the best duo at wide receiver with Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins. I'm a little bit surprised that this happened right now, to be completely honest with you. I thought this would kind of carry out through July a little bit more before Bengals training camp starts. I was even a little bit worried that the Bengals or that Tee Higgins wouldn't show up on time to Bengals training camp. But this shows you that he really didn't want to get traded, right? He requested a trade, but he wanted to stay here. He was kind of just playing the game with his agent, missing all the voluntary workouts and, trying to get that extension. Rumors that he would, miss more time. But ultimately, he decided to sign the deal, take his money, and he'll be out there for 2024. So your chance to get interactive here in the comments. Let us know what you think. It's the pinned comment for today's video. Rate your confidence in Tee Higgins. Go ahead and scale that 1 to 10. How do you feel about him coming back? Do you have any worries that since it's, a franchise tag 1-year deal, could he potentially, miss games towards the end of the year if he's a little bit banged up? For the record, I don't believe that will happen at all, but I think it's fair to, worry about that a little bit. So head on down in the comments, rate it 1 to 10 what you think about Tee Higgins in terms of your confidence level. We talked about last week, Ted Karras reached a 1-year extension with the Cincinnati Bengals, so he will be here for the next 2 years, and he seems to be really thrilled about staying in Cincinnati for the next 2 years. Taking a look at what he said here the other day, he said, "I'm a Midwest guy, just from right down the street in Indy. It's an honor to be signed up for the next 2 seasons. I want to play for as long as they'll have me, then I'll play 1 more. And I don't want to, and I do want to end it here. I think that is important for me, but football is an adventure. But for the next 2 years, I'm here." And, I think this is big on several different levels because players didn't always say this, right? When you look back at the Bengals history, one name that pops into mind immediately is Carson Palmer. Obviously, that was a while ago, but he wanted nothing more than to get out of Cincinnati towards the end of his career, and he basically said, "Trade me or I'm not playing." Right? And free agents didn't used to always want to come here, and that certainly has changed in years past, and it shows you how far the organization has come. Right? Granted, I think a lot of this is the Joe Burrow effect. They do believe they can come here and win, but I think Zach Taylor deserves a lot of credit on this as well. And when you look at a guy like Ted Karras, I believe he could kind of potentially be the next star at center in this league. Obviously, you got Jason Kelsey, who was the star center, him retiring. Not saying he could be at necessarily that level, but he's got everything that you need, right? He's got the accomplishments, two-time Super Bowl champion. He's got the personality, and he's doing great things with his Cincy Hat project, benefiting adults with disabilities, and he's done a really nice job with that, and that's just something that shows you the type of guy that he is, and I do believe he could be a star in these next few years for the Cincinnati Bengals. So once again, hop down in the comments and give us your thoughts. Do you think that Ted Karras will retire as a Cincinnati Bengal? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Another storyline to keep an eye on here is Andrei Iosivas. I think this is a guy that could potentially make a year two leap for Cincinnati. And he's someone that really caught the eyes of his teammates during minicamp. Keep in mind, he was getting a ton of extra reps because Tee Higgins was not there. And I think even last year, looking at some of his numbers here, he really, popped in a lot of ways. The numbers don't necessarily jump out at you, but, the intangible stuff with Iosivas was really apparent to me. He was always in the right spots, and, he really earned the trust of Joe Burrow, and that's, pretty rare to get that kind of trust from your quarterback, especially as a rookie, and especially as a rookie that was drafted in the 6th round. And could you imagine a red zone package with Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins, Mike Gesicki, and Andrei Iosivas? I mean, that is some incredible size. That's a lot of big frames there. And shoot, that'd be pretty dangerous, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. Taking a look here at what Joe Burrow said, kind of with regards to the 2024 offense and how things are going to be a little bit different this year. He said, with the personnel we have this year, we'll be able to do a lot more with personnel groupings, putting different people in different spots and doing a lot of different things as far as eye candy and making teams adjust their personnel based on ours. I'm excited to kind of dive into that world. Break that down here in a second. But let us know, do you think Tee Higgins will break out in 2024? I think there's a lot of people that certainly think he can. And, he certainly has the traits to do so. Obviously, he was a track star in college. And, he really showed a lot of good things last year. So let us know down in the comments. Type A for yes and type B for no. I'm really excited about the versatility of the receiving room this year. And don't get me wrong, I love Tyler Boyd and all he did as a Bengal. But he really wasn't much of a chess piece for Cincinnati, right? He was lining up in the slot pretty much every single time. When you look at the receivers that the Bengals have this year, there's a lot more versatility, right? They can obviously move Jamar Chase around. I think you're going to be able to see him play in the slot a little bit more this year. Obviously, he did some stuff in the run game as well. That wasn't always very successful. Maybe that'll change this year. But you got, Jermaine Burton. He's a guy that can play on the inside and out. And, we could, a lot of times, you could put Iosivas and Higgins on the outside and then maybe line up Gesicki in the slot. So you just have a lot more opportunities to do some different things this year if you're Cincinnati. And I think this is really going to put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses. And now we can really start to think about all these things because Tee Higgins is officially back. It was kind of up in the air, like, well, what's the offense fully going to look like? Well, now the wide receiver 2 is back, and obviously he could be the wide receiver 1 on a lot of teams. So that's just going to make everyone else's job around him that much easier. And super excited that Tee Higgins appears to be back on board for the 2024 season. One last thing before we get out of here, make sure you hit that sub button for Bengals coverage all off season long. We've got you covered here at Bengals Breakdown by Chat Sports. So smash that subscribe button down below. That is youtube.com/BengalsTV.